Hashtag Impact invites you in to eavesdrop on raw and honest conversations on creating positive change in the world. I am your host, Regina Larco, and together with guests and hosts from around the globe, we encourage you to get curious about what making an impact means to you. Join the conversation and share your voice at hashtagimpact.com. Today, I sit down with Dr. Shirley Gallagher. She is an accomplished scientific communicator with over 25 years of experience. Her dedication to environmental issues began in 1986 as a result of the nuclear explosion in Chernobyl. I think every one of us who remembers that time knows exactly where they were. And well, we will talk more about this and how it inspired you greatly. And you actually then wrote your PhD on contaminated land as well, right? And since the 90s, she has been working in contaminated land, water, energy, and now in the circular economy. Shirley's interest lies in the biodiversity, carbon footprinting, climate mitigation, quality and training to international standards. And she is also a fellow of Institute of Sustainable and Environmental Professionals. Actively involved with EU Climate Pact ambassadors, climate reality projects, Voices for Climate Action, Toastmasters, and other environmental forums, Shirley champions sustainability, circular economy, and biodiversity by creating conversations that develop sustainable systems. Shirley, welcome to Hashtag Impact.
Thank you, Regina. It's great to be here.
And I want to actually say I was happy to read that in your introduction as well. I was happy you mentioned the Voices for Climate Action because that's how we met. And I absolutely adore what they did there. Shout out to some of the people I've connected with thanks to that platform. It's an EU-funded program that has brought female entrepreneurs in front of the mic. Claude did an amazing job. And there I heard you sitting at the seaside in a beautiful conversation with one of the other participants. That's when I heard your voice the first time, Shirley.
Thank you, Regina. Yes, and actually Natalia is from Vienna. I don't know.
Is she?
Do you know Natalia?
I don't know Natalia.
You should have Natalia on here. She's wonderful. And she's a graphic designer and does a lot of innovation with climate action and engaging communities. She runs climathons, hackathons, different things. So yeah, she'll be very entertaining for your guests at some point in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad we get to share this moment together. Shirley, and I heard you say that in a brilliant TED Talk you gave, where you said that you live on the edge of Ireland, on the edge of the EU, on the edge of the world, and we don't conform. So I really just want to mirror that back to you, like that thing you said a couple of years ago.
And I said that
now.
quite some time ago, Regina.
Yes.
That TEDx was based in Cork in 2013. And yes, as islanders, I'm from a tiny little island off the coast of Ireland called Árainn Mhór. It's 7 square miles. It's 5 kilometers from the mainland. And being an islander definitely teaches you different things. You learn you're in a community. You need to develop your community skills. You learn to speak to all ages because it's a finite community. And one of my neighbors, who's called Neil, he said it very beautifully one time. He said, we can go anywhere, we can do anything, and we can talk to anyone. And that's a great skill to have wherever you go in life. So being a nonconformist, yeah, I was pregnant during 1986 when Chernobyl happened, and I was really, I suppose, horrified that I was bringing a child into the world which could be very contaminated. And it got me into the whole environmental sphere. I have stayed in that. I've pivoted as time has gone on, depending on, where I see the opportunity and where I see my ability to help and make a difference. And, sometimes that nonconformist attitude is a way to help disrupt and to break. I don't see the box. I often say I fall over the box that, people like to put us in boxes. And when you don't see it, sometimes that's a challenge. So yeah, so it's interesting to hear that feedback from a very long time ago.
Yeah, because and you actually already answered my question without even hearing it yet. But that, I absolutely love those moments when you kind of like revisit something that you maybe said many, many years ago. And of course, all the life you've lived since then and the roles that you've taken on, the identity shifts, but also your work in the sustainability space. And I just thought, conformity is something in the context of your work within the sustainability space. I thought that was just so. I was really intrigued and felt it's maybe something we haven't often discussed on the podcast, and in that way that you just framed it. Actually, maybe the boxes that we sometimes also either we are put in or we are putting ourselves in. And how do you stay maybe almost agile uh, in a changing world with many more challenges? Like if we're looking back now when you said that, like over a decade ago, and the world we're finding in ourselves today.
Absolutely.
It's an interesting concept, yeah.
It is. And I suppose, I was a grown up in 2008 when the crash happened, and it knocked a lot of us for six. Many of us, including me, lost our jobs. And, around 2013, things were still quite difficult in Ireland and Cork. Dublin had bounced back, but Cork most certainly hadn't. And then, things took off again at a race in 2015. I found I was really busy with work, with technical work. So, my intro was quite technical, but the reality is often I'm quite informal. I'm quite laissez-faire to a certain degree, but my technical work is quite technical, and it needs to meet standards from an international standards organization point of view, the ISOs, but also from a policy and framework for the various European directives that we need to comply with in a sustainability space. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that there is that juxtaposition, and I do feel it is that being brought up as an islander makes you a little bit different from others.
You might just be the first Islander on the show, actually. Yeah, I think so. In almost a decade of hashtag impact. Can you believe it? Finally. I have a lot of Irish friends, actually, that I met during my time in Hong Kong. Even played some Gaelic football very poorly, but I did it. And I always, and you mentioned it, kind of almost like a side note there when you said you're coming from this small place, but there's something very, at least I felt that always when I was in spaces with Irish friends, that community plays a big role. And in this season of hashtag impact, I really challenged myself to understand and learn a bit the maybe the things we sometimes take for granted if we look at community building from a personal space, and take some of those learnings into our impact work as well. Because I feel, and you must have experienced that as well with all the work you did over the many decades of work, and also scientific work you did. You can never create that impact that you try to achieve in isolation. You need that community, but you also need to, I guess, tell stories in a way and communicate your why as well, and your purpose, and or the standards, the regulations, whatever it is, in a way that other people have a way in. How do you look at that from the angle of the topics that you care about so deeply, and like sustainability, circular economy, biodiversity, if we put the filter of community building over it?
Well, I suppose community building for me, it's really important. So I said I grew up. I still have friends. I've friends scattered all over the world. I've an aunt in Barbados. One of my best friends lives in Chicago and has done for 40 years. And we speak on a regular basis, just touching base, as she's going to work and all that type of stuff. And then, I've got college friends. So there at Christmas time, a gang of us met up in Belfast. I did my degrees in Belfast, and it had been 30 years since I graduated from my PhD. And about 13 of us met up at 2 o'clock for lunch, and we talked till midnight. And so I'm in contact with 5 of them quite regularly, and there's a bunch of us that meet once a year. We put the date in the diary for the year, so that's closed off, and we meet generally in October, and we have a wonderful time. We talk for the whole weekend, and we know we have each other's backs if we need that support, but we are scattered all over the country. All of us live in Ireland at the minute, but we're in all corners of it. And then my community here in Cork. So I live in Cork. I have a scientific community. I have an artistic community. On the biodiversity side, I'm involved in an orchard called futureorchardcork.com, where we have varieties of about 49 different apples, some heritage, some not. And we do various different training things. So we have a lifelong learning event in April in Cork. I'll give you the website for that later. And also I sea swim, Regina. So I sea swim in Ireland in the Atlantic every weekend. And I've got the most wonderful community there. And we have events that are not only involved in the sea swimming. So, for example, we had a gathering last week. We're having another gathering next week. We're going to a play. We're going to an ABBA night where we're learning to sing ABBA. And we're looking at getting dressed up and, doing silly things as well, because that's really important, to do the fun events as well as the not so fun. And finally, on going back to the VOCA, the Voices for Climate Action, I spent a wonderful week in Greece in June and met with incredible people. And we developed over 40 podcast episodes in Voices for Climate Action. And then because there was 3 of us were from Cork in Ireland, so Conor Gibson, myself, Shirley Gallagher, and Tara O'Donoghue, we all developed a number of podcasts. So there was 5 in total podcasts. And we had a launch in January in Cork in an artist studio called shandonstudios.com. So I've got lots of communities, and I haven't even started on the Toastmasters. So yeah, it's very important to me.
Yeah. And of course, plug again for putting it all in I will put it all in the show notes so that people can continue listening. And now, of course, in relation also to your impact work on your on your professional side, looking you as the co-founder of and I'm just pulling it up so I really get it right here, that I say it correctly, the SLBS, Second Life Battery Services Limited. When it comes to that role as a impact entrepreneur, I guess, where is where's like your proudest moment, you would say, where you see what you are doing there is not just abstract, but actually real life impact?
So I'm the Chief Operating Officer for SLBS, and it is an absolute mouthful, Regina. We keep saying when we get enough funding to do the branding properly, we will change our name. But for now, it is exactly what it says on the tin. So we take waste batteries, we test them. If they're good enough to go again, we put them in new systems that we digitally, remotely control. And we've got a fantastic tech team. And my role is to support them in getting all the systems in place so that we can connect with investors, which is, I'm actually meeting with an investor after this conversation. I'm involved in speaking events in Amsterdam and in London later this year with the future of utilities, again, engaging with investors and with potential customers. And where we are to date is we've got patent pending technology. So we've got really incredible technology that John, my co-founder, has developed. We protected that with our patent, what are they called? Patent attorney is Purdy Lucy. And we've protected that in a way so that we will get investors, and the investors will support us automate our system. And then our plan is to increase out our customers. So at the minute we have a domestic system in situ. So we've got our proof of concept available. It's a 10 kilowatt hour system for those interested in the tech end. And we're building out 2 commercial systems before the end of June 26. And our plan is to automate our systems. And my plan as Chief Operating Officer is to develop out the ISOs. So I'm going to look at 3 ISOs. So International Standard Organization, 9001 is quality, 14001 is environmental, and also the health and safety is 45001. But I will look at the GHG, the greenhouse gas protocol, and potentially the new sustainable ISO, which is developed around the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. So that's quite a lot that I will be doing, as well as, saying loud and clear what we're doing, how we're doing it, and where we're doing it.
Yeah, it sounds like I have a really good team. I'm happy to hear you again. You're not doing this in isolation. You have a strong team of co-founder and the support system, I guess, as well. And that's what I hear in like as a red thread throughout the conversations that I've been having over the past decade, is that you really need that, because not everything works out, of course. There are also setbacks. And you shared something with me before that I'm going to quote now. Life rarely works out the way I have planned, and I have gratitude for the lessons learned along the way. And I'm I'm thinking now of an experience that you had a couple of years back with Greenworks, where there was a lot of, I guess, heartbreak and setback as well, that you just had to, I guess, overcome and work through to pick yourself up again after the things that didn't work out that time.
That's true, Regina. And I suppose Greenworks was a project, again, a consortium. And and for me, I like working with people. I have strengths, but I also have weaknesses. And as a result, like if you work in a community with people that you know and trust, it generally works out way better than, well, me doing it alone. I definitely like working with others. So going back to Greenmarks, we got a European Social Fund, 1.6 million to upskill people in the green economy. And it's one of my highlights of my career. I really loved it. We made a difference with so many people. We set up 30 companies within that time. We had funding for 10 months. We trained over 1,500 people in certified. So it was FETAC at the time, which stands for Further Education Training Award, maybe certification. And it's now QQI, which is quality something or other. And so as a result of that, so we had, certified training courses that were done by Nicer Training. And sadly, Devon has passed away. She died quite suddenly some years back. And, as you get older, you realize life is finite. And, that whole adage of making this day count is how I stand up to it. And Cultivate and Woodrow Consulting and myself and CISPRO, we developed a fantastic, and Glass actually, Colin Byrne and Kilkenny, we developed a fabulous national training program in green business, in building, in arts and crafts, and in land use. And to this day, Regina, I know how to crochet because of that. One of the arts teacher was Mary Conroy, and she did fantastic work with everyone. And she ran this beautiful arts and crafts classes a couple of times a week, and it would be so peaceful. And my office used to be so crazy because everybody would be coming in and out, and there'd be printing going. Be chaos. And I would go into this arts class to just get some peace and quiet and serenity. And she'd have classical music on, and everyone was doing their own thing. And it was really lovely. So, yeah, I look at, and what I find actually about Greenmarks is we did 1.6 million. We trained 1,500 people. We set up 30 companies. We were a real success, but we couldn't get more funding because the universities came in and said, actually, we can train people that are job seekers. And then as a result, we never got any further funding to do the training. And it sat on a shelf for quite some time.
Yeah.
And I'm still in contact with a number of people. And for example, our permaculture. So permaculture is permanent agriculture. It came out of Australia with the idea that you plant things as and when you need them, and you basically have things growing permanently. So you plant trees, you plant herb gardens, and so on and so forth. And our trainer, we had Graham Strouts and we had Virginia. What's Virginia's second name now? I should know. Anyway, but Virginia went on to set up a really successful business called My Goodness. And she is fantastic. So, there's so much wonderful things happened as a result of Greenworks. but it could have been so much better. Virginia Stearns is her second name, and mygoodness.com is the website. But with it, if you kind of look at the whole green buildings, we could have made a really big difference 15, 16 years ago than the government still kind of faffing around, giving grants out and so on and so forth. But we had a methodology to help people insulate. We trained over 100 people in attic insulation and windows and doors insulations and real practical stuff for people that couldn't, that were unemployed because there was no work at the time after the crash. And yeah, I have great fond memories of making a difference, and that really, it gave me a huge sense of purpose, and I wish it had been different the way it ended, but I'm very proud of who and what we created.
Yeah, and why I paused there was because for a second I was trying to memorize what I had listened to this morning, a podcast. And I'm going to quote it now, but I'm going to pull out the quote because I actually wrote it down in my notebook. I have it right here. I was listening to Jay Shetty On Purpose podcast, and he had Mel Robbins there. Yeah. And she said, and I just loved it so much. I just wanted to bring it to you now as well, especially after hearing your story. And I think everyone who is, and I know as you're listening here, many of you are also building your own social impact ventures. Not all of you as companies. It doesn't have to be a company, but some of you in ways that you're volunteering and giving back, setting up community groups to do your own little thing, in the world. And then there will be, inevitably, life will just throw you these stumbling blocks where something that was even so meaningful, and you described it so beautifully, Shirley, and what came out of it as well, yeah. Even though that thing ended, but then that quote, and I'm teasing so long now, but I'm giving it to you now. I thought it was so beautiful. I really want to memorize it for the next time. And she said there, for hard moments, what she is telling herself, so that is Mel Robbins, saying, I refuse to believe this is how it ends. And I think that's just, it doesn't mean that one project cannot end, but it to me, how I interpret it is as when those setbacks come, you do find the courage to pick yourself up from it again and say, yeah, I'll keep going, because it's my job, and it's my passion, and I want to make this impact in the world. And I love that. I refuse to believe this is how it ends. Yeah.
And I suppose as you were saying it, Regina, it made me think of Simon Sinek's. He talks about the different games. One has a finite end and one doesn't.
Yeah.
And the long game, I think, is how he explains it.
Yeah.
There is no end. And in lots of ways, what I did in Greenworks, helped. As I say, it made an impact on such a lot of people, and it gave a lot of people hope in a time when, there was very dark spaces and places in Ireland. And yeah, and I suppose for me, it's that whole, when it ended, we all went off and did different things. Mags, my PA, who was the most wonderful person in the world, she went back and did I think at least another 2 qualifications, because she recognised the degree she had wasn't going to get her a job, and she's changed her career. So lots of people did different things as a result of the 2008 financial crash. And for me, I went on to various different things. Setting up labs is kind of what I do for people. So I'm very much systems thinking and creating those processes and developing what they have into a methodology that makes sense to auditors coming in from externally. So I did that. And then, I got involved with a number of research projects, and I got involved in energy projects on different islands. So I was involved in island hopping around Europe, looking at how energy was being used in different islands, and got involved with various different European projects as a result of that. So, it didn't end, I suppose, in some respects, but yeah. And also I set up Greenworks in this fabulous. Do you know about Harry Potter? Are you familiar with Harry Potter and Hogwarts?
I should be, but I've never gotten into it. But I really hope my children will, and then I can, then I
Well,
can get into it. I think I have a lot ahead of me getting into it now. Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
well, I haven't been involved in it either. I know quite a number of people who are big into it, but the Hogwarts is this big Victorian, so maybe 150-year-old red brick building, and that's the building we were in. And it's still an educational facility today, run by Northside Community Enterprises. And fantastic. They do various different things. They train a lot of people, and they take people who have been addicted, and they have a 12-week program where they're living in a facility, and then the next step they come out into the community as such, and then they get upskilled into various different roles through the NCE. And that's one of the reasons why I chose to do the environmental training there. But we did do training all around the place in Dublin and Limerick, in Sligo and Kilkenny. And what we used to do was, if we could find trainees in Kerry, we would send the trainer down. And we made, this is in the days before Zoom and before online training, and we made it as simple as we could for our trainees. And like, we had renewable energy projects in both my island, Árainn Mhór, and in Tory. And I found out later the trainers that went to Tory were invited to a wedding on the first day, and it took them a week to get the training done. So it's back to community.
Yeah. All full circle, right? Well, but that actually also brings in, thank you so much for sharing all your insights for everyone who has been listening and feels also very drawn to Shirley's energy, like I am. Please make sure to connect with her. I put all the links in the show notes. But I won't let you go until I send you through the quick fire round. That is 3 quick questions for some quick answers from you. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, yeah.
Making an impact means
Making a difference.
Mhm. Who inspires you in the way they build community?
Well, I think we've spoken about Mel Robbins. We've there's lots of podcasts hosts that I quite inspire to. I love Dr. Andrew Huberman, and I really like his whole community. I suppose going back to the whole science stuff, it's quite good.
Mm. And what could everyone do right now to make the world an even better place.
To be kind.
Yeah. Yeah, let's all do that. And thank you so much for sharing your time with me and our listeners here today. And for everyone who would love to continue hearing Shirley's powerful and very warm voice. I love the Irish accent. I could listen to you for hours and hours, Shirley. Please check out the conversations that you also recorded on the Voices of Climate Action podcast. I'll link that. And then, of course, also the brilliant podcast with the and I lost your video now, Shirley. Actually, I lost the video, so now I cannot see the beautiful logo anymore
Yes.
of the podcast that you are involved in with the here it is, the Irish Talkers podcast. Loving it, with the Toastmaster community that you are involved with, irishtalkers.com. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and we have a weekly podcast. So on one week we do a magazine show where myself and Paula Mahoney and Moira O'Brien. Moira O'Brien's our producer, and Paula and myself have topics relating to Toastmasters, how to be better speakers. So for those who are not familiar with Toastmasters, toastmastersinternational.com is a website, or is a platform it's an educational charity. It's 101 years old. It was set up in the US during the Great Recession back in the 1920s. And it was to help with leadership skills and with communication and public speaking. So I joined it to support my ability to communicate, because as a scientist, I found, as a scientist, you're not really trained to communicate. You're trained to do reports in a way that are really scientific and dry. And often they don't communicate well. So I felt Toastmasters really supported me on that. And then with the irishtalkers.com, we also have an interview with a different Toastmaster on the subsequent week. So we alternate between the magazine show and the interview week. So that's irishtalkers.com. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. I'm so happy to plug it. I love podcasts, you know it. Yeah. And I think this is just something that is just such a it's so much needed, that skill. How do you actually communicate? It all goes back to that, for better understanding and for being understood, by making sure you practice it as well, right? It's all about practice and doing it. And yeah, so Shirley, you're leading the way with that, and thank you so much for being here today. And I will check in with you how everything is going, and yeah, I'll talk to you soon, Shirley.
Great. Thank you, Regina.
Thank you so much for joining today. If you would like to get your voice heard on #Impact, just send a voice note at #impact.com/story. I will include the link in the show notes as well, so you can easily find it. And if you love what you're hearing here, please tell your friends about it too. I talk to you soon. Bye.